If you're running an online meeting or workshop, then an online whiteboard is an absolutely brilliant tool to get the best out of your participants and the best out of the meeting. I use MURAL to do that, and in this video I'm going to show you how I use it so that you're familiar and can do it in your session, and I'm going to share with you some tips and tricks to get the best out of your participants and make sure they're also using the whiteboard to achieve a great aim for your workshop. So let's have a look and dive right in to MURAL. So here I am in the MURAL account, and I'm going to show you how to set up a MURAL from scratch to run any workshop you like, but we might focus on a particular type of workshop just to make it a bit more useful to you. So here's a blank MURAL. I just created it just now, so all I did was hit create MURAL. Let's call it real world facilitation test. So there we go. So all I've done is rename that. First thing I might do on here is just create a title so that anybody coming in, here we go, there's a title, and see, so this is the starting point. You can see what's happened. I'm going to close that side piece. Here it has added in my title. So I am going to just call that a real world facilitation test MURAL. So that's going to be my title, and I can move it wherever I like. So let's put it up there for now. So, and here I am, look, scrolling out, so you can see how it moves around. It gets bigger and larger depending on what all I'm doing there is scrolling with the mouse key. So there's a great online icebreaker, assuming you're going to be inviting a number of people to this workshop, that I really like to do, and let's just set that up now so you can see how you do that. We've got a video that explains how the icebreaker works, but all I'm going to do here is drag across a box. I'm going to leave that box, I'll make it a little bigger, why not? And in that box I want to add a text box, so I'm going back into here. You can see all I've done is click on that, it's put that, and I'm going to put name. So this, if I click on it to move it, I then click on this, and I want to put that name at the top of the box. I might just resize it so it fits a bit more neatly, close that again, and there we go. So I've got one of those, and now if I click on both of those together, so I held down the shift key to select both of those, and then hit Control and D, duplicate, which is a great function. Now I've got three, and I'm going to then hold down the shift key again and do this, drag, and I'm going to hit Control and D again, and there I'm actually using a Mac, so it's Command and D. There we go. So let's assume I've just got 6 people coming to this workshop. It's a small and intimate one. So when we get into the workshop, I'm going to say to my participants, I'll put the real names here. So real name before that's good, isn't it? Before they come into the session, I will put their names here. Let's just widen that across, put it back in the middle. You can fiddle around all day long. Somehow or other, I've added this line, so I'm just going to click on it and delete. So that's now gone. So, and then I'm going to say to them when they come in, I'd like them just to spend a minute on their own. So I'm going to send them an invite to share this MURAL with them. I'll show you how you do that in the end. And I'm going to then say to them, find a picture over here in images. So my instructions will tell them, come over here, click on the images, and then find an image that represents your job. So let's say it's complexity, I was going to say. So let's look at, there you go, you can type anything you like, and perhaps your job is really complex and you think that that's a good picture to represent complexity. So all I do is ask them under their name to put a picture to represent their view, and then as part of my introduction I am going to ask them to explain why they have picked the picture that they have. And what you're left with, which is quite nice, is a board a bit like this. So if we picked another one, perhaps people tend to write teamwork and complexity. There you go, let's same kind of, there you go, this is the standard teamwork picture, isn't it? So perhaps someone's going to put that, and then they may, I don't know, what else might we put in here? Leader. Oh, I can't spell leader. There we go, let's go, that will do. So perhaps, are you a leader? I'm just giving you a flavour here of what, so you're asking in your MURAL board, you're going to ask each of the individuals to do this as an introduction, and then you can ask them to talk about who they are. Remember, you've got Zoom or Teams open alongside this so that you can be looking at them on the video call and get them to introduce themselves to everyone else and say why they've picked the picture they have. So that's your introduction to the session, gets them there, and you're left with a lovely visual. After that, so let's say this session is going to be a business process review. So I quite often get involved in working with clients on things looking at how is your process going, or indeed in a digital transformation right at the beginning of that process. You might look at the business processes, the big business processes, trying to work out which ones are going to lend themselves best to automation or digitization in a sort of part of a digital transformation project. But let's call it a business process review. I can't spell again, so let's go change that. Now, business process review can also be a workflow review. So you could be exactly the same thing, just a different name for it. And here we are, business process review. I've just hit Command and B or Control and B to make that bold. And I'm to drag around, so let me just close that. All I'm doing is I'm clicking on my mouse, left button, and I can then move the whole board around. And if you look down here at the right, in this yellow box down here, you can see where that where I am on my mural board. As that grows, that starts to get a bit more useful to you, because you can start to see where you are on your canvas, on your whiteboard. So business process review. If you're doing this, the first thing you need to do in any business process review session is work out what are the big headings. What are the kind of stages, if you like, of your business process, or customer experience, same kind of approach. So from this perspective, what I want to do is to create a first stage, and let's call this I don't know, sales introduction. So let's assume that whatever this business process is, it begins with some sort of selling process, and then see all I've done there, Control and D, I clicked on there, hit Command and D. So if I get rid of that, do it again, Command and D, Mural helpfully puts a box right next to it in line. You have very little to do, you can move really quickly doing that. After introduction, we might have an onboarding process where we bring our new customers on board, and then just for the sake of this, we'll just have three. We'll have program, no, let's call it product service. I don't know, making it up as I go along. So now I've got a three-stage process. Quite often this will be much longer than three. Next part of this then is to work out what's going on at each of the stages of your business process. And I would typically do this, you can use swim lanes. So if I just go over here and create a line, so I'm going to drag that across, I'm holding down the left mouse button, and then I'm going to drag that out. So I'm going to create three swim lanes. So there's one, Command and D coming up, two, and I'm pressing Command and D again, three. There we go. So I've got three swim lanes. This represents different teams that might be involved in each of the stages. So it's quite helpful just to get people to start to think about the interaction between their own teams in a business process. So now I'm going to put post-its up. So this is in preparation now. I would do this before the session, and I'm going to put a post-it here. I'm going to put a different coloured post-it down here, and then let's go with a green one for this team, whoever they are. So this might be, let's give them a title. Let's call it the sales team. You can see where this is going, can't you? So it's sales. I might just shrink that up, even though it doesn't matter. And then Control and D, and I'm going to call that the, I don't know, product team, whoever they might be. And then we're going to have a finance team, why not? So there we go. Now we've got our three teams in our little workshop. Of course, you can do this as many times over as you want, as big or not as you want. So I notice here that I'm getting a bit crowded on the left. So I don't really like that. Visually, I don't like it. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key, hold down the left mouse key, drag that all over here. Now I can pick the whole lot up and just nudge it across over there. So here we go. Now let's assume I've invited my guests in. I've sent them a link to this. They've joined the mural. Second really cool thing about online whiteboards is this will now sit here and people can join it and look at it whenever they like. So this could be a week ahead of my workshop or an hour ahead. I typically send the invites out about an hour or two before. So I've got people, and you can watch people arrive what happens is you'll see an extra initial arrive down here, and you can watch their cursor moving around, see what they're looking at. You can follow them, which is something I won't show you in this session, but in the next video I can show you how that works. So you can follow people or make people follow you, which is really handy in this to navigate around. But let's assume they're in, they've done their introductions, they've picked some photos, pictures that represent them, give us something to talk about, and then we're into this. So the start of this session would be, we've worked out that there's 3 stages to our process. I might have talked to them in advance to work that out, or I might have done it as part of the beginning of the workshop. And we've got 3 teams that we're talking to. So the first thing, obviously, is to ask the sales team what happens first. And they might say, well, I don't know, cold call. Let's just assume they cold call a customer. So all I did was click on there and type, then Command and D, here we go again. I'd say, what's next? What happens after the cold calls? Well, I don't know, schedule, let's not get that detailed. We have a meeting, so a sales meeting of some sort with those people that make it through that step far. And then we might negotiate. Let's just assume that's as far as we go. Now, typically at the end of a stage, you'd like to have something that signals the kind of completion, which in this case might be a contract signed. So let's pick up a diamond shape. And all I've done, as you saw, was just click on there. A diamond has appeared. I'm going to put it into position here. And then I want to shade it. So let's change the color to grey. You can see what I did there, really simply. And I might now add the text on there to say contract signed. There we go, and that just about fits, doesn't it? Capital O in contract. That's not quite right, is it? So there we go. So that's our beginning of the process we've started to map out. Again, here I've got a bit of an overlap, haven't I? I don't like that, so I'm just going to click on onboarding, hold down the Shift key, click on product service, move it over a bit. Now I've got a bit of space. Now, what's interesting here is in running a workshop, so I'm showing you how to use Mural, but if this was a real workshop, I would also be saying to the finance team, are you involved? Quite normally, finance teams would be involved at the point of contract or negotiation. So they might say, yes, we are. Oops, look, I've managed to pick up both there. So click away. Hello, I'm picking up both of these together. So I'm going to drag that down slightly and then just move the green post-it note over. And they might be involved in drawing up a contract. So if you're doing this live, 2 things to bear in mind. One is, don't worry too much about the correct language, because what you'll find is you stumble over trying to work out how best to describe something. Secondly, try and get the team to be doing this themselves. They can add post-it notes. Anyone on here that you give permission to can add their own post-it notes. And this works really well as you put people into breakout groups. You might have a group that look at the sales introduction stage, and then an onboarding group and a product service group. So you might be able to have 3 different groups, and you can sit and watch as they build this mural together, even though they might be working on different parts of the process, so different parts of the screen. So it's really, really handy for that as well. So here we go. So we've got the finance involved in drawing up the contract at this stage. So we've got a bit of overlap. We might start to think about who's in a RACI. So a RACI stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. And it's quite a neat way of just testing that you've thought through who's in control, and then who is doing what, who needs to be asked questions or informed. We can talk about RACI in another video. So that gets you right to the end of your sales introduction. We know that sales are going to do these 3 steps. Finance need to be involved. Product team don't need to be involved. Hello, the little line's moving again. Let's zoom in a bit, click somewhere else. Oh, you cheeky little monkey. Let me just move that over and do this. Okay, so I'll sort that out in a second. That's annoying, isn't it? It's a frustrating little piece of the jigsaw. Let me try like that. There we go. So what we've said so far is product team don't have any involvement. And you can see there some of the fiddles with using an online whiteboard. So Mural, like all the others, have the little fiddles, things that go a bit wrong. The best thing about it when things go wrong with all this stuff is, unlike in the real world, if I want to change these, or I'm going to change the colour of a post-it, all I've got to do is click up here. Let's make that green. And if I don't like that, here I am, Command and Z, undo. Probably the most useful keyboard shortcut you'll ever have, the undo button. So that gets us through the first stage of a business process review session. Carry on talking about the stages as we go. Onboarding, I don't know, let's say that on an onboarding sales team, they might do the first part to hand over, perhaps, and then you would have the product team involved in the handover, so perhaps it's a dual task, again the capital, and then perhaps after the onboarding handover stage you would have, I don't know what happens in onboarding, client briefings, training, systems access, let's say without allowed to whatever thing it is that we do in this imaginary business process. Finance, are they involved in onboarding? Well, probably they might set up the finance, so set up finance systems, let's say, I don't know. So there we go. So, and of course, all of this time I'm talking with the group, I'm engaging them, and they are telling me the answers. I'm watching my Zoom screen or Teams screen to see who's involved, who's engaged, who's not speaking, and trying to build people into the session by asking them what happens next. So you can carry on that as long as you wish. Some really interesting things to then do is, once you've got a business process, is to ask the group where things go right, where things go wrong. So, and you can, here's a great thing with Mural, we could go up here, we can change the border, give it a border if we want to, we could change the colour, make it red if we wanted to say, well, this is an area that we really need to look at. Or we could add a star to it. So here's the icons part. So we can drag any of these. Here we go. Maybe this one doesn't go well. So you can ask the group to potentially get into small groups, breakouts, depending on how many people you've got, do it all together, work through understanding what goes well, what doesn't go well. That's how you start to look at, in customer experience, that's where you start to look at where there is room for improving and delighting your customers. And in a business process review, you might start having a conversation about how finance always draw the contract up too early, sales always end up negotiating without involving finance, whatever the problems are, but you would capture those. And I would typically say, use a post-it, let's grab a post-it, put it down here, let's say we'll change its colour. So we'll make it red because it's going to be all problematic, and we might say finance and sales working closely together. Maybe, I don't know, something that refers to our, can't even spell, can I? Closely together. Something that might refer to that. Font color here, so it's not really readable, is it? I can zoom in a bit, which is just scrolling in on my mouse, but I can change that font color to, this is make it bold, so that would help, wouldn't it? It's quite nice. I might just keep it like that for now. So there we have the business process review session example set up in Mural. Now this is also really good for project planning, pretty much exactly the same kind of setup, apart from across the top you would have, of course, time, so you'd have the months, you can set that up in advance, and then down the side you would have your work streams or project titles, and then you can work through adding post-its, and this just goes on infinitely. So the best thing about it is that if I take these three, I've added a line between them, this is connectors, that's what I've done there. So if I take these three and just press Command D, and I'm just holding that down now. Hang on. If I did a bookmark, that's helpful, isn't it? Didn't want it. But if you look what's happening down here in this area of the screen, you can see it's just building them out and out and out and out, and we could keep going and going and going. So you've got an infinite space, and here I am scrolling right out so we can have a look at the whole board together, and then zooming in on particular things that I might want to draw attention to. So the last couple of bits to share with you, and this is really is a headline view of how to use Mural. Just going to highlight all of these, press the delete key, get rid of them. So the really interesting thing about all of this is is that each individual who is logged into this, once you've shared with them the link, I'll show you that, can move around and look at different things. So they can be over here, Fred, whoever Fred is, could be over zooming in to have a little look at this, have a think about what he wants to to add to this. Meanwhile, Jackie might be over here having a look back at the pictures. Anyone can be looking wherever they want and zooming in and out around, so they've kind of got their own view of this. And then at any point where you want them all to follow you, I won't be able to do that now because there's no one else logged into this, but if you can see here the grayed out bit, it's an ask to be followed, or I can force them to follow me, and then they will start to see everything I'm looking at until either they scroll somewhere else or I release them. So it's a really handy tip to be able to get people to look at the bit you might want them to be talking about next. So the last part of this demo is sharing this with other people. So all you will have to do is click on that share button, and then it wants to know, do you want to copy the link or do you want to send people the link directly? So I often use this one, and then I might put in Kieran there we go, there's an email address popped up for me there, one of many, and you can then just send it to them, and you can decide here whether they can edit it or just view it, and you can add a personal message in here as well to say, here I am from Mural sharing this with you. So as I said earlier, I tend to do that only an hour or two before the session, because then I can go and have a look at what they're looking at whilst they log in. I might have this open on the screen next to me while I'm working on something prior to the workshop, and I can see who's logging in and what they're looking at. And I use 3 screens when I'm using this. So I have this on one screen, and then I'll have the Zoom call or Teams call on another screen, and then I will have a messaging app if they're messaging on Zoom or Teams in the middle as well. But I always encourage people, if they've got something they want to talk about or add, grab a post-it. They can have them up here, and you can add a post-it onto here with your point. I also find it really useful, so we've got our names of our team here. I might add here a post-it for each of them already. So if I had a list of their names, so let's just grab that, duplicate it, and here we go, let's put their name. So I'm going to duplicate those so I can show you very quickly what I do. And this just really helps to identify who's adding what to the board. So let's say it's just 4 for the purpose of this. Then you can change the color of this to, as you probably saw, any number of different colors. So I'm going to give them, actually I've already used that color, so let's change that to there you go, boring post-it yellow, orange for that person, and no, let's go with purple for this person, and navy, indigo blue, there you go for the last one. So now I can say to them, when you want to add a post-it, grab one from over here, and I can either put loads out for them, that was Command and D, or show them how to do that, and then they can just go on here, duplicate a post-it, and make their note here. And they might spell make without an extra capital A in it. Thank you very much. And therefore you can identify who has put which of the notes up. You can also do that by right clicking, and if I put show info, it says that I added it a minute ago. So that's another way that you can do that. So that's, for now, a really basic introduction to Mural. It saves as you go, so it's all here. Everything you put up there remains up there. And if you want to lock it, which we can talk about in more detail, I've highlighted everything there. I right click and I can lock it so that only anyone here can unlock, or only I can unlock. And there you go. So now none of these will move around and no one can delete them apart from me, which can be very helpful when you build backgrounds like this. If you build swim lanes and headings and sections, people accidentally move them or delete them, it can be a real problem. So do lock the backgrounds. And you might want to lock it all after the session, so you've got a note that doesn't get changed afterwards, because people can log back in until you tell them that they can't, till you set their permissions not to not be able to. And that's a fantastic way of getting them back involved, coming back to things later and adding to it, because of course it's infinite. You can keep going and make this a project wall, a project room if you like, so you can keep all of your stuff here and all come back together around your team meetings to look at how you're doing. So that's how I use Mural to run a workshop. There are loads of different techniques and different templates that you can use. I would love to see yours, so please do feel free to share in the comments if you've got some templates that you set up and use successfully. Like and subscribe this video if you'd like more of this kind of content. It really helps us out, and please watch the rest of our videos as well. Good luck in your session.